Welcome back. CyberSpace podcast. Empirical Training. Do you know what I mean? So they're like Empirical Training. Welcome back to the CyberSpace podcast. Empirical Training.
Hello and welcome back to the CyberSpace podcast. There's one guy over there who said he'd give us a round of applause when I introduced us. Thanks, George.
Yeah, that didn't work well, did it?
He's not our producer. He's just lost that right. He's not even a mate. Anyway, so welcome back to the CyberSpace podcast. You probably heard of us already by now. You might not have. You might be here for the first time. Maybe it's because we're doing our first in-person podcast and you thought, hey, look at the production value there.
Yeah.
That looks pretty good, actually. I'll click on that. I've had enough for looking at fellas on webcams, which is fair enough. That's why we're trying this out.
Yeah.
But we are Empirical Training. This is our podcast, CyberSpace podcast. A cheesier man would say this is a safe space to talk about cybersecurity issues.
Well, that is cheesy, isn't it?
It is cheesy. Americans liked it.
Yeah, okay, if they like it. We'll use
I
it.
mean, it does capture the essence of it, but I agree that we left that one on the drawing board. Maybe I should let it die. We are Empirical Training. We are a group of 4 friends, former colleagues, who all met in the cybersecurity industry. We have unorthodox backgrounds, most of us. If you want to hear more about that, you can find that in earlier episodes. I myself came from a legal background. Andrew Phones over here was a car salesman and a phone salesman.
No, I was in business and IT, but I was a bus driver for a little bit. And if you've listened to some of the first episodes and you've joined the Discord, you'll understand why there's bus emojis being posted still after the first episode. But yeah.
Pull that away, you're going to sound way louder than me.
Loud.
But yeah, to be fair, I mean, he did say business though, right? It could be phones and cars. Who
Yeah.
knows? So point is, we want to share the information that we've gained over our so far in our careers of cybersecurity. We want to help people get into the industry. We also want to make sure people can feel safer online. Cybersecurity threats are more numerous. I think they're a lot more common in people's personal lives than they ever used to be.
Yeah,
Used to be
definitely.
maybe the concern of bigger businesses and enterprises. They'll go after anybody. If there's a way they can monetize access, they'll do that. And they can monetize access by stealing your data, or they can monetize access by using your machine to be put in their botnet and use that to attack other organizations as well. So there's loads of reasons to be secure online. We share information on our TikTok, on our social medias, on Instagram. Short clips, trying to educate people. And people who need more information in the short clips, we are working on some more long-form courses. If you join our school community, school with a K, then you can have early access to some of those and actually get one-on-one or 4-on-1 sometimes. There's 4 of us.
Sounded a bit suspicious.
It
but-
does, yeah. Support into your cybersecurity journey and pathway. We want to help people. That's why we're here.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, even on YouTube as well, we've branched out into some of the long form content on YouTube. So yeah, if there's any videos that you want to see, give us some content ideas, anything you want to talk about on the podcast, any short form clips you'd love to see, any content in the school community like Josh mentioned, come and join us. And it's a safe space, the school community. It is actually for new people who are joining the industry. Like,
No such thing as a stupid question.
No such thing as a stupid question. So definitely join us. It's all completely free. You just got to join and just have a chat with us. There's some courses on there to generate your pathway to become a cybersecurity analyst. And give us feedback on it. If you think it's not very good or you think it is really good, give us some feedback in there as well.
We like feedback. And did you notice he said safe space, so it's catching on.
Yeah.
But now that's enough of the kind of information of who we are. I just wanted to get that in there. Why we're here today, the episode that you clicked on or downloaded to listen is the continuation, part 2 of the role of AI in cybersecurity. Last episode, if you haven't checked it out, go back, listen to that one first. I think it sets out a really good foundation for what we're about to talk about today. We looked at what AI actually is and what it isn't. It's not artificial general intelligence. We aren't there yet. Elon Musk is warning about us about that because of where it could go in the future. We're not there yet. It's not quite as powerful as people might think it is. We also then talked about how attackers have been able to really adopt AI and use it to make themselves more sophisticated, to lower the barrier of entry, and ultimately put out more attacks and better attacks, in a nutshell. So we looked at a lot of examples of how that how they do that. And this episode, potentially a shorter one, but we'll see. We always think they're going to be short.
Yeah, they're going for ages.
Is to focus on what defenders can do to maybe thwart some of the AI uses by attackers, but also how defenders can be better at our jobs. How we, I used to work in incident response and then did some threat hunting. Andrew is an incident response consultant right
On the
now.
internet.
Andrew's the internet. So we got a lot of information to share about from the blue team side, the defense side, of how we've seen AI used before it was a super big buzzword. It's not that new. We've been using AI for a while.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah,
but also why we can't use it maybe to the same degree attackers are. That's the setup for where we're probably going with this.
Yeah, I think definitely go back and listen to the first one that we did. Again, we're blue teamers, so it's the red team side is definitely from what we've read, isn't it? It's, no, we don't work in red team. We're not pen testers, so
no.
There might be other ways that we don't know about that it's being used, but we just covered a few that we've heard about and that we've kind of dealt with day to day.
Yeah, it was long enough. We could have kept going.
Yeah, we could have gone.
But I think we picked out some of the key ones and really bring it into focus. And we ended that podcast talking about how it made things a lot easier for the attackers, but how attackers are the mouse in the cat and mouse game that we play. They are always the ones we're chasing. They can adopt the latest techniques and try them out, and we have to kind of follow and work out what it is they've done. It gives them an advantage. They always get to go first in this chess game. We have to go second. And so as defenders, it's been really interesting seeing kind of developing new techniques, new controls to mitigate some of the AI uses. But also, I point out at the end how fingers have been pointed at the defender industry that we either aren't using AI rapidly enough, because attackers are, and they're making leaps and bounds forward, or we are lying about how the level of AI that we're using. Because you will see, if you go to a cybersecurity conference, you'll see AI detections or AI-enabled investigations.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed it, and I don't want to name any of the certain products.
I almost did, but yes.
Or the tools that are using it, but they definitely coin AI detection within their new agent, endpoint agent. And I've actually wondered, and you're probably in a better position to actually help me understand how are these security vendors, specifically then maybe an endpoint agent, how is it actually using AI? That's something I don't understand.
Yeah, so I do a lot of research on different security products that are out there, because I have a product role these days. AJ will tell us the specifics, and I'll tell us the high level stuff. So AI, I think maybe it's worth boiling it back to what they mean when they say what you need to satisfy in order to claim your AI. Right? AI does the way we ChatGPT or there's large language models, LLMs, is what everyone is interacting with AI these days. It's what they might say, only that is AI. That might be your perception. But actually, AI is any form of machine learning. Now, machine learning just means rather than it being if this, do that, it's kind of constantly improving itself by looking at a data set. In fact, the minimum kind of example is it makes a recursive query. So either it looks back in its previous data set, how did I react last time? Or how does this compare to what I've seen before and how I've been told to respond to this? Is it super similar to something bad I've seen? Okay, then I'll act and say it's bad. That is enough to say you're AI, right? If you use machine learning, it's AI. Machine learning has been around for, I don't know, as long as I've been in cybersecurity, right?
Yeah, I would say so. It's always, it's always been there, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I can't say there's a specific time I remember it coming in. It was always there. It's only the way that AI has come on with as it has now with ChatGPT, and it's come on as leaps and bounds. But again, it's always been in the industry, really, isn't it?
And I think that the ChatGPT stuff, the LLMs, it's just how it presents it to us. It seems more intelligent. I said this last time because it feels more intelligent. It talks to us on the level that we understand. But also an AI is your Google Ads.
Yeah, that's true.
It looks at your behaviors, your interests, and it builds up a model of what you might like going forward. That's machine learning.
Yeah.
The way one of the best examples I think of machine learning in cybersecurity detections, which is what you asked me, is like user behavior anomaly detections.
Okay, yeah.
So you probably heard before that the user is the new perimeter, right? As we're in cloud, we work from home, we have loads of data centers, so you've got to secure the user. That's tricky. It's tricky to work out when they're behaving abnormally, when they've been compromised, because it will often look like normal user activity.
Mm.
So say if someone was able to do an account takeover attack, take my credentials, I've either fallen for a phishing email and I've submitted it into a credential harvesting form they've created. Maybe they've managed to brute force my account to guess the password, essentially, probably using credential stuffing techniques or password spray, which is kind of a lower and slower form of a brute force. It's basically guessing over and over. Might get my password wrong. I got fat fingers. Incorrect logins every now and then aren't really a sign that someone's bad's going on. They're normal. So they hide in that stuff. They can maybe take over the account. So this is when we focus then on that user behavior anomaly detection is, basic one. Did it log in from somewhere I've never logged in from before?
Okay, I get you.
If I'm on holiday, maybe that was me. But it's
Yeah.
kind of unlikely I'm going to go on holiday and take my laptop and
And
work
then log in,
all the time. So say all of a sudden, let's pick Russia because it's an easy target. I'd log in from a Russian IP address. That is enough to create an alert that someone like yourself would look at.
But how is that different from just a general, like a standalone alert to where AI comes into it?
Good question. So it builds up a established model of known good behavior.
Okay.
So it looks at so maybe, let's say 4 weeks is always a good measure, I think, to build up enough data. It does just really depend. But over the last 4 weeks, they can see, Josh logs in at 9 o'clock every day, sometimes maybe 8:30. So there's a window there. And he logs off at 6 p.m. or whatever. It starts to build up my general patterns. Does he ever log in at 7 a.m.? Maybe once in blue moon. Okay, he does. Or maybe he never does. Maybe he only logs in from I have an office in centre of London. I have a house in Wales. Maybe I log in from those different places. It builds up what's normal. Now, what's interesting in these baselines is if I was already compromised, it would include the attacker activity as legitimate Josh.
I see.
But the idea is you do it when it's in a safe state, an uncompromised state, and then as soon as I stray far enough from, we're getting to data science terms, a standard deviation. So basically, is it that different to what we've normally seen that I think, worth flagging up? And you can have different levels of sensitivity with this, depending on how many alerts you want.
I see.
But yeah, basically, I mean, if I've never logged in from Russia and I log in from Russia and they've seen the last 6 months I've never logged in from Russia, then boom, someone should investigate that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You might even have a policy that if I do log in from Russia, you just want to cancel.
It's just
disable my account.
Prevents you from logging in the first place. Yeah, but so I get you now. So it stores your user behavior activity within the language model.
No language model here. This is just normal. Machine learning.
Okay. Right. Okay. So it just stores it within the machine learning model.
Yeah.
And then it records the activity for, say, the past 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And then once it's recorded,
that's known good. Anything outside of known good,
they don't re-record it after to get another baseline.
No, it will continue to. It'll just build the baseline.
Okay.
Yeah, and if what will feed into it is if it sends out an alert, and we close off that incident maybe and say no, false positive or no action taken, it will then go, okay, Russia's normal for this person. Whatever. So it's constantly learning.
Yeah,
and it's constantly looking backwards as to what happened before. Anomaly detection is basically that use case. That's a really common security use case, because as attackers get good at hiding in legitimate activity, we have to find anomalies. So maybe creating a load of accounts in the middle of the night.
Yeah,
that's
sense.
something you and I used to look for manually.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at with the Defender, the historic use of AI, let's say, or AI in security. It's been around for ages. It's not new. Maybe you're seeing more elevations of it because people are actually, they think, AI, everyone thinks AI is class.
Yeah.
There are more modern uses of AI as well, which I can talk about too, if you wanted to, how the actual LLM stuff is being used.
Yeah, that's probably the part that that I don't really know about. So most of the I pick up on the endpoint agents because it's kind of a lot of the detections I tend to deal with.
Yeah, endpoint being like your laptop or desktop, just
so kind of a beefed up antivirus, if you want to think of it like that. But it's effectively trying to detect malicious activity. But that's what I'm trying to gauge now, how it uses that machine learning model to do that. So the majority of the big vendors out there, they're doing it how you explained it, through anomaly detection based on user behavior.
That's the main use of ML in detections, and I guess by ML you can say AI.
Okay, but they're not very good, are they?
Well, they
from my
can be.
experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the thing with detections.
That's why I was
right?
trying to gauge what it was all about to see if it was more than what I thought it was. But it makes sense. It makes
Yeah.
sense now. But
Yeah, and I'm sure I have simplified. I'm sure there are some which are a little bit more intelligent and maybe have loads of
Yeah.
different queries they're looking at.
I can't say that I've used all of the endpoint vendors,
Yeah.
but just based on the ones that I have used, I don't know. We've basically had to build for any endpoint system. We've had to build our own detections because it hasn't been able to do what we've kind of wanted it to do, and
what they said it would do.
yeah, what they said it would do. Yeah, so I've always wondered why that is the case, but I guess it is quite difficult to implement on a large scale then, because
Yeah, and it will vary on a per customer basis, I guess.
yeah,
Like if your IT team are nuts and they do all sorts of different things,
yeah,
then that'll be very hard to detect anomalous attacker activity in there.
yeah,
If they're quite regimented, they always use certain programs. They always use, they have a certain procedure, a process around it.
yeah,
Then the baseline of normal will be more narrow, and you'll be able to easily identify outliers.
that makes sense.
But like I think a great example for endpoint centric stuff is like fileless malware.
Okay.
So living off the land attacks. We've actually we've defined this a few times on our social media. People want to say that, but for people who don't know that, it's back in the olden days, you used to bring your own malware. So basically, you drop a file and it does those things you want it to do. That's easy to stop, right? Because we can say, hey, don't allow any files to be installed, and then only by admins.
Application whitelisting, so you've only got a certain set of applications which you determine are legitimate.
Yeah, allow listing is what we're calling it now.
Oh, is it changed its name?
It
now,
has,
isn't
yeah.
it? This is the great thing about being with somebody who's in product marketing, because I'm fully tech based. I don't do any marketing side in the companies that I work for. So the things change, like even with the machine learning stuff, it's changing into language models and how. Well, we'll get onto how they're using that now instead of the historic.
And so you almost don't care sometimes how it works. You just make sure it does work.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was like, okay, it works like this, but actually, yeah, but it's not working how I said it does. So how do we need to make it work as intended, sort of thing? So yeah, I suppose there is a part of that as well, trying to figure out how things ultimately should work. But yeah, sometimes it's like and install it, do what I want, do what you're supposed to do. Okay, it doesn't do what I'm supposed to do. We'll have to figure out.
I think that black box nature is really difficult because, like, carrying on that example of the fileless malware attack, it's trying to basically attackers will now try and use legitimate programs. So PowerShell is the obvious one. PowerShell is your Windows command execution. Would you call it command line? I guess it's process.
Command line. It's kind of a terminal command line tool, isn't it?
Yeah,
I would say that.
So it can run your code, and IT admins will use this to update your systems to open up ports, whatever it is they need to do to make your computer work in daily business. So it has to be allowed to run.
Yeah, exactly.
So attackers will use it, but they'll use it for an abnormal way. That's where the ML comes in. It's like this is not how your IT admins normally use it. I think I smell something dodgy, or it might not even be ML. It might just be like I can see there's a malicious string in the commands, so block.
Because that's a lot of the companies that I've kind of worked with recently. They use a lot of MacBooks, and they're kind of Apple-based companies. And similar to PowerShell is OSA script or Apple script on so same sort of function. But then we had an engagement and it didn't detect any of it, and it ran some real suspicious stuff.
So do you simulate? Do you do your own tests with like actual malware to see if it's working? As you test it out?
We test it out. So different. So we mentioned there's C2 agents, but command and control agents. So it's basically a malware file planted onto the system that has the ability to communicate back to the attacker. So we simulate any of the new C2 frameworks that come out. We simulate it on our test endpoints just to see how our detections face, and we kind of hope that the agent itself has the ability to detect it, but more often than not, it doesn't, which is quite a shame.
That's interesting. You talked a lot there about detections. I didn't hear prevent at all, which is historically what antivirus was more about, preventing. These days, endpoint detection and response, right? Is in the name.
That's the thing.
Why is that?
Where you should always assume that you could be compromised, and you're not going to be able to prevent. You can't prevent it from happening, really. At some point, like we said in the first podcast about the hackers being able to use AI, they only need to get in one way. And if we don't have a prevention method for that one way, because it's probably unlikely that we will, because it's so new, whatever method they're using, it's better that once they're on the system that we've got detections to detect their activities rather than. And if you do, that's another reason as well. If you've got prevention alerts in place, it could block legitimate user activity.
Or false positives, yeah.
And then false positives are even worse then, because it could knock a server offline, or it could stop a user from doing their job.
Yeah.
They raise a ticket with us, like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and their productivity is hindered, and that's what you're trying to you're trying to prevent productivity from being impacted by attackers.
Yeah.
You can't be we said this earlier, you become basically the reason it's all messed up.
Yeah, we don't want us to be the reason. Yeah, so that's a big reason that it's
So why so then prevention? So I get the challenge that we can't prevent everything. What does detection allow us to do, and why are you looking at so many detections?
So detections, then, they obviously allow us to detect certain attacker behavior. So ultimately, that's the role in incident response and detection engineering is to build detection rules that will detect specific known attacker behaviors, instead of just looking for like a file hash or a specific type of malware file. You're looking for the actual behavior, such as maybe an outbound connection to a suspicious IP address or and things like that. So that's the idea.
You're trying to find a common odd behavior amongst the activity that will give you a reason. Okay, I need to go and look at this. It could be something bad.
Yeah.
So it's that, and you can, as it is a detection, not prevention, you can afford to be wrong, right? If you detect a false positive, what happens?
If you detect a false positive, if it's just a detection, then you can analyze it, and you can either choose to tune out the signature if there's certain noise there that shouldn't be generating those false positives, or you could just close it out as a
He often gives me more detailed answers than I'm after. What's the impact of detecting a false positive?
But the impact of detecting a false
You're accurate. That wasn't inside. You're accurate. It's good to be accurate. But what's the impact
of a false positive?
Detecting a false positive.
Nothing.
Yeah. Trick question. Yeah, that's it. That's the crux of it. You can afford to be wrong in detection.
Yeah.
And in fact, you have to be most of the time, right? If you're not, I call false positive a necessary evil. If you haven't got a bunch of false positives that are wasting your time every day, then you aren't looking at enough. You've got blind spots, false negatives, where you say everything's hunky dory, it's all fine, no alerts raised. But there wasn't a malicious action that occurred. That's worse.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, and I know false positive, I'm not saying, hey, everyone turn everything up to 11 and just have drown in alerts. Yeah. There's a balance to be had. AJ talked about the fine tuning that is done to kind of have that right level of acceptable false positives.
Yeah, because ultimately you're going to have some false positives, like you say. Like you're going to, basically what you're trying to do is look everywhere.
Yeah.
Whatever logs that you've got from all the systems, you're trying to look everywhere and trying to cover every base, but you can't. But you
especially as we don't know what the attacks of the future are going to be. Right?
Yeah, they change. Yeah.
The AI that might more polymorphic malwares we talked about.
Yeah.
You have to try and find common behaviors. Heuristics is the fancy word for behaviors.
That's a big one that comes up in these. It sounds like I've got a chip on my shoulder about these endpoint detection things, but they say they use heuristic behavior, and I'm like, do you actually?
Yeah.
Do you actually use it?
And another question that brings, because you talk about your as part of your job, you're writing these detections to try and catch as much as you need to catch and anticipate future threats. You're also working them to actually say, hey, did it work?
Yeah.
And then there's a feedback loop, but also you might be catching something that is malicious and you can respond to it. Could an AI do that? Why can't you just automate it all?
Well, so an AI create detections and respond to them.
There are some products out there that say we've got AI analysts, so you have to do barely anything. You set it up and it runs, and it does the AI instant response, AI analysis.
I've wondered about that because we obviously talk about getting into the industry as a cybersecurity analyst.
Yeah.
And because it's where all four of us started. And I've always wondered, like, are we giving away something that isn't quite future proofed?
Oh yeah.
But the one way that I see it is, I think someday, like a level 1 analyst or something like that could be completely automated by AI, but it still needs some human context, which I think AI at some point will be able to bring in. But
I don't think it will.
You don't?
Nah, I don't. I mean, I think that it's, if something can be automated, it should be. If I'm seeing 10 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10, this is a bad thing, let's automate that automatically, put it in the prevention category. The very nature of the kind of cat and mouse thing that we are kind of catching up to the attackers is we're never going to have that complete confidence that our technology works 100%. And even if you had the best AI analyst, assistant
Yeah.
ever, I would still, as a cybersecurity leader, as a company, as anyone, I would still want a person to be validating that,
Mm.
because AI, if it's wrong, it won't tell anyone. It might even
It
realize
doesn't even care.
it
Really.
doesn't care. Yeah, they can't make these kind of value judgments. And don't get me
Yeah,
wrong,
that's a good
people are
point.
wrong. People do
Yeah,
make
that's true.
mistakes.
Yeah.
You miss things. That happens. Like, you part of as a cybersecurity analyst, you'll go through your reviews of your analysis, where you'll get kind of co-marked by your peers or by your boss, and that's important, because one, it improves you, keeps you at a high level, and keeps you consistent. But also, you do have times where you just miss something, you mess up, or sometimes you're on the fence. Is it bad or is it good?
Yeah.
You kind of go left or right. But I think that AI, anyone who says AI is going to replace humans is talking absolute nonsense.
Do you
in
think?
security,
Oh, okay.
I think it will shift humans maybe up or on to the
Yeah.
more nuanced pieces, because there are just judgments that we're able to make. We're slower. We maybe are lazier. We demand more money. We require more attention. But we have that kind of creative thought, lateral thought, and also we understand context a lot better.
Mm.
We are able to actually think of, maybe I'll talk to Derek in HR, because he said something in the corridor the other day about maybe doing something weird with his computer.
Yeah, I see what
Bad
you mean.
example.
No,
but
that makes sense though.
yeah, so I think even if we look at our first jobs
Yeah.
in our the log review team,
Yeah.
where we were looking for anomalous activity, basically within the last
Yeah.
24 hours of logs, anomalous account creations,
Mm.
anomalous pseudo elevations. During my time, you think you moved on, but I was still in there when they were beginning to automate it. We were part of the kind of what's the term for it? It's human informed machine learning. It's not quite.
Okay.
That's the right term,
I'm
but
not sure.
it's something like that, where basically we're marking the homework of the AI. It says, I
Right,
think
yeah.
this is what it would be a pick out.
Yeah.
Also, it does it in a second, and then we go, nah, no in here.
That's wrong. Yeah.
Nah, or yeah, and it got, and because of that feedback loop, it got smarter and it got smarter.
Mm.
And actually, we got to a point where we were able to fully automate that. One,
Okay.
because it's not super important.
Yeah, I see.
It's not as important as a live attack analyzing that.
Yeah.
And so let's take away the lower value stuff and let's automate that. And maybe you fully, if this is the low risk of it getting wrong, give it to AI. But anything that's got high risk, high impact potential, I think you're always going to want that person to look at it.
It makes sense. That's, like I said, that's trying to help people get into the industry, and obviously cybersecurity analyst is always the position that we recommend, because it's often the easiest. It's not easy, but it's usually the lower entry to get in, which when something becomes easier to get in, it usually becomes the first job that is replaced.
True.
And the way that I've seen it, that imagine in like 5 years, you've got maybe less than that, maybe something we could do now, where all your logs are being pushed into ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And then you've asked it, well, you haven't even asked it, it knows from all the detection articles to create seam signatures. And then as soon as the signature fires in the seam, it sends that alert over to ChatGPT. ChatGPT's got all the logs from the different log sources to make the judgment of what it, based on the log sources of what could have happened.
Mm-hmm.
But then would it be able to ultimately decide if it's, because we can.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't it be able to do the same?
Because we ultimately, AIs make their assessments, the LLMs you're referring to then, they make their assessments based on historic data, how you and I, say, have handled incidents in the past. If we flag that as malicious, a human's done that, then it learns from that.
Okay,
and it kind of moves forward. Would it be in a position where it'd be able to accurately and confidently detect new threats, new emerging threats, 0 days that haven't been seen before? It doesn't have that same data pool to pool on. What if it's completely brand new, not a derivative? It's an exploit no one's ever seen the like of. I'm trying to think of an example, but there must have been a day one, right, when the first SQL injection happened, the first buffer overflow, and so on. So that's the one point. The second point I'd give out is the attackers have ChatGPT or whatever too, unless we're in a world where maybe some governments have gone together and created ultra intelligent, mild, head and shoulders above everything else AI that is only the good guys are allowed to use. Then maybe it would have the advantage. But if it's the same technology the attackers can use, and ultimately anything attackers and the defenders, we basically use the same stuff, right? We're one of them are good guys, one of them are bad guys, or well, maybe that's a bit simplistic, but it's the same knowledge we have really, and it's just applied differently. So if they could use the same AI model, that same one that's writing the scene detections, write a detection that would defeat any of the seam rules you've ever written, type of thing, or use your understanding of seams to write an undetectable attack.
That's a good point, actually.
So I think that cat and mouse nature continues, where any technologies that we can adopt as attack defenders normally can be adopted by the attackers. And really, to my overarching point here, they can adopt them quicker. They can adopt them at a bigger scale and at a broader scope, because it doesn't matter if they're wrong. Going back to your false positive point, you have to make sure your false positive is as low as possible when it comes to prevention, because otherwise you're impacting operations.
Yeah, it's very true. And also high rates of false positives as an analyst, you just get fed up.
Boy who cried wolf.
Yeah.
No one believes you.
Yeah, you're not going to believe the system if it keeps generating the same alert over and over. But then it's your responsibility to tune that activity.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you see an alert and you've seen it 10, 15 times maybe that week, you might be thinking, yesterday it was a false positive, but today it was a true positive. And if you haven't looked into it and you haven't assessed it in the same way as you should have as a brand new alert and only seen it one time, then you could make a mistake then, couldn't you? So, but I think it's interesting. I think in terms of like blue teamers using AI, so me specifically, how
do you use it? That's great.
I've used, so it helps me build detections.
So are we talking LLMs now, just to be clear? Not
so ChatGPT.
Okay, yeah.
So in terms of that's why I was asking you at the start about machine learning.
Yeah.
Because don't have hands-on experience with a machine learning model. Like the endpoint.
You're not a data scientist. That's people are specialized just in that to write those things.
Yeah, exactly. That's why
maths degrees and
so that's why when an endpoint agent might be using machine learning, I'm not actually like typing anything in. I'm not doing anything. It's triggering itself. I can't modify that agent. I can't do anything to it. It's the company that
black box.
Yeah, it's there.
That poses challenges if you don't know exactly how it's working. Because clearly we had to have that discussion earlier, right? You don't always know how it's making the assessment, but it says, "Hey, I think this is a whatever."
Yeah, exactly.
This is this attack, and you have to work out, is it that attack?
Yeah, but and that's what it is. And I have noticed now thinking back at the endpoint detection agent that we use, it does have some behavior indicators, and if there is enough of those behavior indicators, then it will generate an alert to us.
Yeah, it's just that probability scale. It's maybe it's dodgy, but not enough.
Yeah, it doesn't really know. But then it's just my experience is just not very good, which is what I've noticed.
Yeah, but I think that's also the thing of it having to be over eager in the detections, because you're the filter that
that's true.
You actually make and most of your job as an analyst is to look at false positives, right? It's like, yep, nothing happened, or nothing to see here, we're good.
So and that's why that was good to talk about at the start, because it definitely clarified it a lot more for me. But kind of like day to day in my job, detection engineering is really good for. So let's say that you've got an article that's just come out about maybe a recent incident report about exploiting AWS.
Yeah.
So within that article, it'll tell you about the steps that the attacker took. But it could take you time to read that article.
Yeah.
So what I've been doing recently, copy and pasting that article in ChatGPT, asking it to pull out specific use cases for detections, and then it lists them out. You can sometimes ask it to, like, once you've got the use case, then you've got the idea of the detection that you need to make, then you'll kind of probe it a little bit more to help you build maybe a seam signature.
Yeah.
But it's not that good at making those signatures at the moment, but it is good once you've already got a signature fleshed out, that it'll improve it and make it more efficient.
Okay.
It's good at that.
Interesting. So you're using it, one, to kind of give you a head start of can you repeat this back to me, the bits I need to know about, so you can work off it. And two, you also
as well,
you're giving it your work and saying, hey, can you improve on this, or any problems here? Just kind of double check me, please.
Just to clarify, because that's what I've noticed. It's become kind of, and especially working remotely, it has become like an assistant or
a friend.
A friend. I was going to say a friend. I was like, don't say a friend. They're going to think that you're just talking to this chat GPT model.
We work remote, and we've been working remote together the last few days. It's been nice to have a friend.
Yeah, have people speaking to you in person, not just over a screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I've used it for, is to kind of and like speed up the creation of detections, because often you'd have to read the detection article, and then you should still read the articles as well, like just to skim through it at least.
You sound like a responsible user, right? You actually
you
you
have to
don't
be,
just
yeah.
trust it blindly.
No, that's the thing, and some even when I copy and pasted it into ChatGPT, there was still a lot of use cases that it missed.
Okay.
So I went back through and read the article, and I was like, oh, actually, it didn't pick up on this use case or that use case, for example. And again, going back to it, you've got to be very careful with what information that you're putting into ChatGPT. So if it's company information, don't put it in there.
Yeah.
So and don't tell it what company you're working for. Don't be like, oh, I'm working for this
Don't
company.
overshare.
Yeah,
Treat
don't
it.
overshare. Yeah.
Someone said treat it like an idiot.
Yeah, and use a completely separate account from your work account, from your. So I log. Oh, I'm not going to say what I log in with. Actually, it doesn't matter. most people ChatGPT, they're probably using Gmail to log in. Use a complete one-off account,
burner
a
account.
burner account, multi-factor authentication setup, long passwords, password manager, all that kind of stuff, and make sure you clear the history. So anytime that you can knowing that they probably save a copy of it somewhere.
Yeah,
anyway.
on their site, they're not very clear. I read all the terms and conditions, and they kind of don't really say what they hold on to for how long. They use words like reasonable, but obviously, the more data it has, the better it's going to be. So there's a real incentive for them to hold on to all the data that you give it.
I see what you mean. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Just be responsible when you're using it, because especially in cybersecurity, you could easily, and we said in the first part of this podcast, that your company could easily be compromised based on the information that you provide it in as a cybersecurity professional. If a hacker got into that, found out what company you're working for, and you've got all the logs saved, all the history of your inputs in ChatGPT, that's basically like an instant report, basically a reconnaissance report for the attacker to know exactly how the company works, know exactly what detections you're using. So you've got to be extremely careful,
That last point is really interesting. That they can actually see how your security works if you're telling it everything.
Yeah.
Hey, I deployed this and this. I have Sentinel with these type of KQL queries. Could you tell me some other ones? Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So you make sure you clear your history. Be careful with which ones you use, because there's a lot of like ChatGPT is the one we talk about most, because it's the one that's
everyone knows.
It's the one everyone knows. Yeah. So like day to day, that's one of the use cases I've used it for, is actually building SIEM use cases, and one of the other ones is reviewing code as well. So that's quite a good one. But again, make sure it's not proprietary code. It's usually files which are like sent to us from like phishing campaigns and things like that. Again, you still want to be careful with where you're. So even like things like VirusTotal, they say not to upload to VirusTotal, because if it's a new piece of malware, you're going to trigger the attacker. And if they're targeting your company, they're going to be like, oh, actually, they've just uploaded this. I'm going to change my technique now. And
you're making them aware.
You're making them aware
of what it is you know about them. Yeah, that's that fine line that we always tread.
Yeah.
Not revealing exactly what we know.
Yeah.
Because it's useful.
But then but in terms of ChatGPT, then like reviewing code, sometimes reviewing email headers, but you got to sanitize those because there's going to be company information in there.
Yeah.
But
it sounds like a lot of work to use it responsibly.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you have to be careful. I'd say like a lot of the time you probably want to do the analysis yourself and not rely on ChatGPT, but you can definitely help it prompt your analysis and respond to incidents and things much quicker.
So we're coming up to the end of our time here, I think, and this is a topic that often creeps in, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this again.
Yeah, for sure.
But a lot of stuff you focused on there was on how you can make sure you're using if you are a security analyst and you are using the LLM version of AI, the popular version of AI, how to use it responsibly and how use cases you actually use in real life.
Yeah.
So there is a purpose for it. There is a role for AI.
I would say so.
I wonder if we'll see like companies start to use closed LLM models, so they'll have their own one hosted on their own infrastructure, so are less likely to be compromised. Maybe it doesn't matter if you put more sensitive information in there.
Yeah, we've been looking into
internally.
That.
Yeah, I think that's the future. Letting you kind of license the GPT for whatever.
You can get GPT API keys. but at the moment, I still don't think they're as closed off as
No,
what
they're
people want.
hosted by the
It's still hosted by them, isn't it?
OpenAI, whoever. I believe so. I don't think we're quite there. They may have been. I could be wrong there.
Mm.
But yeah, no, that's really interesting. And there's a big element to kind of summarize some of the stuff we talked about. I think there's a lot of gimmicky AI stuff out there. I stand by that. I don't think that it's replacing level 1 analysts or any analysts anytime soon. It will make us better if we're used responsibly, as you said.
That makes sense.
I see organizations racing to say, "Oh, we've built in AI, we've built in LM into our system now." There's one which is kind of, it's an AI or LM model that basically it bolts onto the platform, and it lets you consume the information that's there in the a verbal way. So you say, "Hey, I won't say the name of it, give away the company, but hey, let me know what threats I've seen on this host," and it will just basically go and you kind of your SIEM database and say, "Here are the recent incidents, here are the vulnerabilities that are on there," and you kind of give you a report. So it's just a new way of consuming the data, in my opinion. I don't think it really is intelligent. I think it's just presented nice. It's
that's true.
It's bows and whistles. It's, hey, I don't have to use the console myself. I can just ask it, and that's the same way you're using it, right? You could Google these things, you could read the articles, or you can ask it a question.
Yeah, and that's exactly that. It's quicker response to the same information. Really, the information is there, but you can just access it a lot quicker. Like it's basically Google search on steroids at the moment, isn't it? That's how I use it then.
Definitely.
Like day to day, especially in Blue Team.
Absolutely. So any kind of closing thoughts? Is it here to stay, AI? What's your future? What's your relationship with AI?
I actually really enjoy it. I have ChatGPT on my phone. I use it generally day to day, just as a Google search. I definitely, as a friend, yeah. I ask him if he can ask me if he or she, I don't know, if he can ask me how I'm feeling that day, maybe. I don't. I generally just use it for as a hyped up Google search, really.
Yeah,
I definitely,
you're really efficient with it as well, I have to say. I know. Use it well.
Like in terms of like we moved into YouTube now, haven't we? Coming up with YouTube scripts and formatting outlines for videos and things like that. Even sometimes helping with like editor notes for the video scripts and things like that. It's basically makes me more efficient at the moment. That's how I see it. It doesn't seem to replace anything that I was doing before. It's just made me a lot more efficient, and I definitely think it's here to stay.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I'm interested to see like the new, is it Sora, the ChatGPT video model?
Oh, is that what it's called?
Yeah, that seems like it's going to change a lot of industries, especially like Hollywood and things like that, films.
Yeah.
And in terms of cybersecurity, imagine how sophisticated I don't know what they would use it for, but I guess if you were sent.
Well, we talked about deep fakes in the last one. I wonder if that's
like
the next
super
step.
deep fakes,
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Interesting. Hypnotize this employee. Create a video that will hypnotize someone. I was actually at an art exhibition the other day, and there was a lot of AI art. When it was I felt mixed feelings about it. I was like, I know that this is easier for you to get, but I also know that you have had input into kind of defining what it is, editing it, selecting the prompts. So I don't know how I feel about it in that capacity, but that's a whole nother topic.
That is,
my kind of thoughts on this. And I've said it a few times. This premise that I'm going to try and summarize it really nicely. The burden of accuracy for defenders is so much higher than it is for attackers that we have to adopt AI in a slower manner. We have to have limited use cases and expand it out responsibly, roll it out responsibly. Whereas the attackers can go Hail Mary, dive straight into using AI because maybe they're a bad hacker. They won't get in anyway. That there's no change to their daily operations if they use AI poorly. They have that freedom to kind of fail forward, to use the cheesy product term. We don't have that luxury, right? If you were able to set up loads of AI detection, AI roles in your organization, do security functions, and you come into work one day, no one can access their computers because it's thought there was a ransomware attack and locked everyone out preemptively. That is a reason why attackers can be right 1 in 100 times and they're happy. They achieve their goals. They make their money normally. We have to be right 99 out of 100 times, or security is less of a priority. People, if it becomes an obstacle to people's daily day-to-day, they don't want to collaborate with you. They don't want to implement more security controls, and ultimately your security posture decreases as a result of that. So we can't be as trigger happy, let's say, with AI.
That makes sense. No, that's a good way to summarize it. Yeah,
good, because I'm writing a blog on that, so I might see that out in the near future.
Nice.
But thank you very much, Mr. AJ.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. That was a good one. I'm
Yeah.
glad we got to summarize AI for the blue teamers and the red teamers there. So
Yeah, that was really interesting to hear your actual practical applications, because I'm a bit removed sometimes. I know the high level stuff, but on the day to day, I don't have that experience anymore. So thank you very much.
No, thanks, Josh.
It's really great to have just me and AJ today. We do a lot of stuff with guests, which we've been really enjoying to hear their stories and share their experiences. And of course, we'll continue to have guests.
Yeah.
But let us know what you thought about us kind of just tackling the topic together. Let us know about the in-person setup. This is something we want to carry on doing more of.
Yeah.
But we don't live next door.
No, we live probably about 2 hours apart, really, don't we? You're
Yeah.
up in England and I'm over in Wales. But we will make the effort to come and do this. And like we said at the start of the other podcast, me and Josh have known each other for years. So we don't just come and hang out to do podcasts. We do hang out in the background, which I hope kind of shows on the podcast. But
yeah, hopefully this has been a more fun way to consume the information. I think we've
Yeah.
talked about stuff we'd normally talk about, but it's felt more fun.
Yeah, it has, yeah.
More free flowing.
yeah.
Let us know what you think. Should I get a new lampshade? Me and my grandma gave me this. Me and the partner are debating whether to replace it or not. Thank you very much. This has been the CyberSpace podcast. As always, you know where to find us. School is the best way to access us. If you find Empirical Training at school with a K, then you can join our community there and you can talk to us on a regular basis. We want to help people understand more about cybersecurity, whether you want a job in it, whether you're trying to advance your job in it, or whether you're just interested, right? So come along and we'll see you in the next episode of CyberSpace.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Andy.
Excellent. That might be it. I think that's a